Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Village of Gurnee Planning and Zoning Board for this Wednesday, November 17th, 2021. Could we have a roll call, please?
Here.
Campbell, Gurnee, Nortop,
Here.
Taft,
Here.
Present. We do have a quorum. If everyone would please stand and join me in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the meeting that was held back on October 6th. Anybody have any questions, comments, changes? If not, a motion to approve would be in order.
Motion. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Second is the minutes from the meeting that was held on the 20th. Questions, comments? If not, a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next is the approval of the meeting schedule for next year. And normally, I don't object to the meetings being held on my birthday, but it's also Yom Kippur, October 5th.
October 5th? Yeah. And we can note that one.
So should we just have one in October, or should we have it on the 2nd and 3rd?
It's up to you guys.
Yeah.
What you want to do.
This past meeting schedule, we had only one meeting on September, and we actually ended up calling a second meeting.
Yeah.
So it's up to you guys. We can always call a special meeting if we need to.
Why don't we go ahead and schedule one for the 12th and just have it out there in case we need it?
So to have two meetings?
Yeah.
Okay.
In which, October?
October, yeah.
Okay.
Yom Kippur falls on the 5th,
So the 12th and the 19th?
12th
then?
and the 19th. Okay, any other comments? If not, a motion to approve as amended would be in order.
Motion to approve as amended?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, the next one is a public hearing, a text amendment to prohibit windscreens and slats on fences.
Yes.
Clara?
Staff brought an informal review to the PZB on October 20th, 2021 to request feedback on a possible text amendment regarding windscreens or slats on fences. Staff has been approached on at least 2 occasions in the past few months as to whether we allow windscreens on chain link fences similar to those used around sports courts, both on residential and non-residential properties. These windscreens can be opaque or semi-transparent and offer a cost-effective way to provide privacy and protection from wind and sun. Staff has some concerns about the appearances of windscreens, especially if they become torn or ripped or damaged over time, as fabric is not as durable as other customary fencing materials and would need to be replaced more often. In non-residential districts, fence types other than barbed wire and electrically charged fences are not regulated. And then in residential districts, the zoning ordinance prohibits certain materials, including solid, plywood, scrap lumber, temporary fencing, and similar non-customary materials. Staff was approached this summer by McClure's Garage as to whether they could replace their fence with a chain link fence and utilize an opaque windscreen. The fence was allowed as fencing types other than barbed wire and electrically charged fencing are not regulated in non-residential districts. The condition was added that the fence and windscreen fabric cover is to be kept in good condition at all times. The windscreen fabric cover must remain attached to the chain link fence and must be replaced if it becomes torn or ripped. Most recently, a Pembroke resident called in early October asking if he could install a chain link fence with a windscreen around his single-family property, which is not part of a homeowners association. The zoning administrator determined that it would be allowed as both chain link fencing and windscreens could be considered customary fencing materials and are not currently prohibited by code. Staff surveyed 14 nearby communities regarding windscreens, and early in the research identified another question for the Planning and Zoning Board to consider, and that's whether to allow or prohibit slats and chain link fences, as these could be used similarly to make a chain link fence appear more solid. Our zoning ordinance does state that a chain link fence with slats is not considered a solid fence, which was put in to prohibit the use of this fence type for garbage enclosures, but does not outright prohibit the use of slats. Of the 14 communities surveyed, 6 would allow windscreens and slats subject to various conditions, such as only allowing them along rear or interior side lot lines, additional landscaping or screening requirements, etc. And 8 communities would not allow windscreens or slats at all. At the October 20th, 2021 informal review, the overall consensus of the Planning and Zoning Board seemed to be that windscreens and slats should be prohibited in both residential and non-residential districts. And staff is proposing the following text amendments, and basically it's the same sort of language, just that windscreens, slats, and similar coverings, except for recreation game courts, would be prohibited in residential districts and in non-residential districts. So there's 2 separate amendments proposed, and you'll see that in the templates for the motions as well. You can vote on both of those separately.
Okay. Thank you, Clara.
Yep.
I think we had a really good discussion on this at that informal meeting, and there was a lot of consensus. Does anybody want to add anything? Yes, go
I
ahead.
just want to question whether, I guess, this is not just on chain link fences, right?
It would be prohibited on any type of fence
What about?
as written.
What about something like Lowe's well, they're gone, but they had up windscreens around their garden department? Isn't that kind of normal?
Well, that went for a special use permit, so if they want to request something like that, they could come in for a special use permit.
Oh, they still could?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, any other questions?
I wasn't at the informal, but
Okay.
I'm supportive of both of these changes.
Okay.
I mean, it makes complete sense to me.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Brian?
My question is, why are we accepting out recreational game courts? I mean, we talked about this at the last meeting, the informal thing. We just talked about prohibiting it, period. There was no exception to it.
We can take that out if you'd like.
Well, we pointed out at the informal meeting that it was an exception currently in the code. It's typically a fence that you see associated with tennis courts and pickleball courts, so I think we wanted to still allow that so that, somebody could watch a tennis match, but you still have that wind barrier, so that's why they're typically allowed for sports recreation courts. And we have, when we looked at other communities' ordinances, that was something that definitely was allowed for those types of situations.
And if it's something that you just want to take out of the residential district language, that is something we can do, but for non-residential, that would include basically anything that isn't residential.
What about like a community center in a residential district?
Well, that would be a public district, wouldn't it?
Would be public?
It depends how the zoning would be, but it could,
We have it listed as residential and non-residential districts, so.
yeah, in our
Okay.
code.
So the residential districts are R1 through R6.
But would a tennis court or something like that in a multifamily complex, would that typically be zoned differently?
No,
That would be zoned residentially?
correct.
Yeah, so that's
Oh, okay.
something to consider with that.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of association type things. I was thinking of like schools and park districts.
Right. I think it still needs to be there personally, because I don't know what they do with the tennis court. The fences are very tall, and I can't imagine having a solid fence around a tennis court.
I don't think you want a solid fence around a tennis court. You're going to prevent people from being able to watch matches,
Right,
And it's going to be really tall, too.
and it's going to be tall and.
yeah.
What's the thought on recreational courts? Does the wind affect the game?
Oh, yeah. I played tennis in high school and college.
especially like pickleball, because the ball is very light and large.
Tennis is the same way,
True, yeah.
really affects the game.
I mean, there's one in the park at Oak Plain Park, and a couple times I've seen heavy winds, and
Yes,
it has
Yes.
disrupted it, but the park district has been really, really good about
yes, and
addressing it
anytime
right
that
away.
happens,
care
in
of it.
fact, right after this informal meeting, the windscreen did get loose from the pickleball courts. We can always call the park district, but they had it taken care of within a day.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm still in favor of leaving the recreation sport court in there.
can you repeat that? I didn't understand.
Yeah, I'm in favor of leaving it as it's written.
Okay,
It's not, yeah,
okay,
I'm not opposed to it.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I'd be in favor of keeping it as it's written as well. Because with the recreational game court, I just feel like there's gonna be a little bit higher level of accountability if the slats or the wind, you know, the windscreen becomes ratty or damaged, there's some sort of level of accountability to have it repaired. Because that's what we don't want in the community. We don't want it to look damaged on, you know, in poor condition.
I-
I think, yeah.
I'm on the same wavelength as well. At this point in time, just the formality, I'm opening the floor to the public, closing the floor to the public because there's nobody here. Any other comments, or a motion would be in order? Or actually, two motions would be in order.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to forward a favorable recommendation on the petition of the Village of Gurnee for an amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance to prohibit windscreens, slats, and similar coverings except for recreation game courts on fences in residential districts.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Josh. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 All right,
Aye, motion carries. And then on the non-residential, we need a motion. Go ahead,
I'll
Josh.
make a favorable, motion to forward a favorable recommendation on the petition of the Village of Gurnee for an amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance to prohibit windscreen, slats, and similar coverings, except for recreation game courts on fences in non-residential districts.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 All right,
Aye, motion carries. Next meeting on the calendar is the 1st of December. Is there anything envisioned?
We don't have any public hearings scheduled at this point.
Okay. Public comment. I just have one question. When I saw the overall heading for the last item that we talked about, accessory structures, it's my understanding we don't have a limit on how many accessory structures there could be in a residential area. And I'm wondering if that's something we should look into tightening up a little bit. I mean, there's one in my general area that has 4, maybe 5 sheds.
We have a regulation that says that the overall area of the accessory structures can't exceed the area of the house, things like that. There's a few,
I think it's the
Other-
footprint. I think it's the footprint.
the footprint of the
But
house.
we have a limit on number of detached detached garages, but you're correct, we don't
Yeah.
have a limit on sheds.
Wow.
It's something we could look at if you wanted us to.
Can you look at it and maybe at the next meeting that we have, just give us a little
Sure.
report on it? Because the one I'm thinking of looks kind of ratty, and boy, I'd be surprised if the total of, there's like a greenhouse and a couple of sheds, if the total footprint of that wasn't more than the house itself.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at that. I think I might know the one you're talking about, and I think some of those
Backs up to
structures.
Rosie's?
Yes, and I
Okay.
think some of those are not permitted potentially.
Okay, and that house just was recently sold, so there might be an opportunity for some enforcement here. Okay,
That's a lot if it could match the footprint of the house. You could build a lot of sheds.
It's not the footprint of the house, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
detached garages, yeah, it is. It's,
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're all different, I mean, it's not like they're uniform, they all look,
yeah.
they all look different, so. All right, that's my soapbox. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second by Josh.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. I hope everybody has a safe and healthy Thanksgiving, and,
You too.
Yeah, you too.
all right, take care.